Hi, and welcome to part 2 of the two tether climbing tree walking series. This is the description or details video. I apologize that it's been a while, but let's get right into it. So I'm going to go quickly over the journey that brought me to my system today, and then I'm going to describe how I set it up and the important measurements you need to take, and why your two tether climbing experience may not have been as good. I want to acknowledge the JRB and his channel for a lot of inspiration and ideas, as well as Seek Bigger and his Better Tether Hitch. Both provided me with some inspiration for ideas, as well as numerous other YouTube channels. First disclaimer though, that what I'm about to show you, just as in my climb video, is completely dangerous. There's a lot of risks involved, and copying me, you do so at your own risk. And you really have to assess your skill level before you undertake imitating what I do. However, I am trying to provide information to make your two tether climb easier and safer, as well as much more efficient than what it is currently. Quick evolution of what got us here. So lots of people are using tethers. We have Sonite tethers, we have knotted tethers, and there's quick links, there's carabiners, there's all sorts of things. Some people pass them through. Some people pass them through in a girth hitch mode. The reason I didn't like this kind of tether was, number one, this is the simplest form for two tether climbing. All you need is a tether like this for a foot loop, as well as a normal tether for climbing. And that can work. However, if you're struggling, it's because, number one, you're wasting a lot of time and effort trying to get your rope up the tree and around many branches and burrs and stuff. You potentially are putting your fingers underneath the rope, which is dangerous. I rejected this type is because, number one, my foot gets uncomfortable standing in this loop, and two, it wasn't adjustable enough to go from a 2-foot diameter tree to a 10-inch diameter tree. It really affected the ergonomics of where you have to put your foot loop and the relationship of your foot in the foot loop to where that tether is. And I didn't like that it changed the position of the tether based on the tree diameter. So I rejected that. Next, I was looking for a tether stiffener because I didn't like the fact that when you have a tether, and I'm just going to demonstrate this, it's pretty floppy, and that's why it catches on everything. And even in one of the most stiffest ropes, HTP or Canyon CIV, it's just not stiff enough, or it quickly loses its stiffness due to regular use. So I went and got some of this edge trim that we have at work. It's thrown away, and I cut the bulb seal off of it. And this was an inspiration at the time. I made a video about it. However, the cons, I never made a video about why I didn't like it. In order to have it adjustable for a large diameter tree, I needed to have a large piece. However, that piece can't be on when you need your friction hitch to be up here or something, so then it just dangles in the way. Then the bottom tether sometimes comes and catches over it, and that really messes things up, and it's just a struggle that you don't need when you're trying to climb quietly. Plus, I didn't like that it is very bulky and hard to store, so I rejected that. Moving on, I went to a steel spring wire inside of the rope, and it worked okay for a little while, but then quickly after 5 or 6 climbs, I noticed many of the cons, and I started to not like them. Number one is, however long you made your wire, it really coiled your rope like this, and I didn't have an effective way to piece these two together, so I had to use my sneak hitch, for example, which is an old video. But it just didn't give me the one-handed ability that I wanted. Plus, it kinks really badly. It is springy, but after a while of constant cinching on a small diameter tree, it provides these kinks that then influences when you're trying to go and move your tether up. It can catch on stuff. And I found that it didn't really open up enough. It's just not stiff enough. Again, the reason I'm doing this is when we get to the point, you'll see why. I just didn't like this shape. It wasn't good enough for me. So, which leads us to the point we are at now. This is not my current rig. This is a very old rig. I'm using this for testing purposes. I will show you my current rig later. But what I have here is a single rope with both ends stiffened to be the top and bottom tether. Alright, let's start with the top tether. You ready? Oh, that's a different. That's different. This is about 3/16 diameter cable. The actual cable itself is a 5/32 diameter 7x7 cable. And part 3 is a video I already made, so no promises broken there, that I'll upload tonight as well, of how to make this rope. Again, it will be taken at your own risk. So this is a night and day difference, coupled with the attachment method. Now this is JRB's Longhorn Agile hitch, and I like that because it gives you in cinch mode, what is it called, a soft shackle. So right now I have it in this mode, in soft shackle mode. I could pass this all the way through and have it just as one long thing, but I'm trying to half this diameter for the climb, and I'll show you what I do with it when I take it out. So basically, and this is Seek Bigger's inspirational part, I have this go underneath it, and I'm going around 1 and around 2. Then this goes through the cable. This is a steel cable. It adds a lot of rigidity and strength to the rope. Now I can give this a little twist, as you can see. So what's happening is that this rope is not going to let it pass over this side, and I have this stopper knot from letting this come off. But the friction hitch is really the star of the show, allowing it to cinch up. I do drop my own drop tests. I stopped showing them, but this has never let me down, and I've proven it satisfactorily to myself that it is both strong and safe. So what that does is that allows me to take the tether and pass it with one hand, and if there is a small branch or nub, to literally one-handed operation of the entire tree. If it's a super scaly barky tree, I can move it back a little bit and just work it around. If it's a large diameter tree, I obviously will need to use my second hand as kind of like a guide. I never now have to get my hands underneath there. Why? To me, the benefit is exhaustion and sweat. We don't want to get sweaty. And when, say, you're sitting in the saddle like this, and you're doing this motion, and you're stretching as far as you can, you are using muscles that you don't normally use, especially in this upper body area, and it's going to make you tired and sweaty. So this relieves that. I do leave about 4 to 5 inches of a gap here, which is really just my hand diameter. It's sometimes more, sometimes less. And what that does is it allows it to be a point that when I am reaching for this to grab it, there's enough slack in that 4 inches that it makes it enough to go up and down those trees, except for super scaly ones. Okay, next point. And this is, well, we're going to get to the really important part. Let's just quickly set up the second tether. The bottom tether, or second tether, is literally the same exact thing. But now we're going to describe it. There's one friction hitch, the Longhorn Agile. This one is a lot shorter, and it's not in soft shackle mode. It's just the tail. This tail has gone through both eyes, so it is completely locked and safe. And the reason it's shorter is because I'm going to be using it different. Not now, but at the end of the climb, if I chose to rappel. So again, let's move this out of the way. Big one on top, around 1, around 2, and cinch. I'm just going to give this a little twist, and voila. I've set the second tether. It's going to pull to both the stopper knot as well as against the friction hitch. Again, I'm going to give myself my hand's breadth, which is about 9 inches or so. And the reason for that, as well as for the top, is I found that I don't like to move the position of my friction hitch. It's just a waste of time. Having this amount allows me that when I grab it with one hand, I can open it quite easily, and that gives me more than enough room to go around things. Forgive me if I repeated myself. Okay. Now we have a second friction hitch. And the reason we have two friction hitches is because we have 2 feet. Yes, the foot loops play the big role in this tree walking system. I don't want a second friction hitch on here because that just is a lot more to adjust, and there's a magic formula for this whole system. How you determine and what, okay, let me go back. Have you ever tried two-tether climbing and struggled? If you have, one of the reasons, among lack of experience, is because you've got your dimensions wrong. You seriously need to consider measuring yourself. Most importantly, measuring your step. When you're two-tether climbing, usually you're seated in one, you have a foot loop in one, and you're seated in the other, and you're doing all sorts of things. You're reaching for the stars, you're really straining yourself to get that last bit of reach, you're balancing, you're stepping as high as you can, you're lifting your foot higher than your normal step is, you're engaging muscles you don't normally use, and they're not used to it, therefore they get tired, they get hot, they get sweaty. It's not a fun experience. Try this instead. And this applies to both my system as well as any two-tether climbing system. Take a ruler and stick it against the ground, against a tree. Just in a relaxed state, stand. Lift your foot as high as you would comfortably step, as if it was a staircase. You know, some staircases are small, some staircases. So just lift your foot high. Oops, just do that a few times. Don't strain, don't lift it too high, because you're just getting it tired, your glutes are not used to that. About high. I've measured myself, and I've come to 15 inches. I have very short legs, I wish it was longer, but it is what it is. If you have an 18-foot step, if you have a 20-foot step, all the better for you. This is going to be way better. Now, the next measurement you're going to do is you're going to reach up in a comfortable manner without stretching. I'm not stretching any of this. I'm just reaching up. That's where I'm going to start my top tether. Because I never want my tether to go above that point. It's just not worth it. I can make more moves, and this fluidity makes the moves better. Now, what you're going to do next is on your saddle. This is my just play saddle. I don't use this for hunting at all, for tree climbing or practice or testing. And you'll notice something very peculiar. I have this saddle set, my upper bridge set at a small point. But I've tied a knot here. And that knot does two things. One, it does keep my carabiner from popping through and tending my friction hitch. Sometimes guys will have their carabiner tend their friction hitch. So I put just a knot there. I actually use a Alpine Butterfly on my main saddle. But the other key point, especially on this test rig, was that when the carabiner sits here, and I have no problem with that, I'm going to lift it up at the point that if I was weighted in it, that's the point it would be. Watch this magic. "15 inches from its most relaxed state to its most tension state." And the same thing goes for my second bridge. Get this out of the way. The second bridge is JRB's style second bridge. You can see his video on how to make it. It's basically a Blake's hitch with a little bit of extra on it. And I have the length set that, again, if I'm at its most highest point, whoops, I'm going to get this at 15 inches to its most relaxed point. What that means is that during my climb, I'm stepping up 15 inches, I'm moving my tether 15 inches, and my slack is never more than 15 inches. So because my system relies on me standing on both feet, should I accidentally slip with both feet, I would go from a standing position to a sitting position, maximum, on both tethers. 15 inches is also the gap between my top tether and my bottom tether when I'm starting out. And I maintain that ratio through the climb. So this is, my top tether is where my arms reached. I'm going to take that pretty much where my bottom tether could go. I'm going to open this up. Whoops, I have a bit of a lump on this. I'm going to set my bottom tether at 15 inches. It's just below my chin, or my neck area. If you see it in my climbing video, when I was climbing down especially, I would regularly put my chin to the tree. And the reason was I was trying to determine that when I'm climbing down, I wasn't going to be going too far, that now I couldn't reach my top tether. I was maintaining the system. I was maintaining that now that I put it there, and I step down, I still have the ability to reach out, not uncomfortably, just normally reach out and move my tether down. I have a screw in the back here that's holding it in place. This tree is very smooth and not conducive to climbing. Alright, so that's the magic of the measurements. And if you try that, even with your normal rig, make your moves according to your foot size. You'll be a lot less tired and you'll struggle a lot less. So that comes to the final part of this system, which is the foot loops. I do have 2 foot loops. Each one is on a TRC rope with a Blake's hitch that allows me to adjust the size. Say I should grow 6 inches tomorrow, I can just adjust the size and it'll be all just great. So what I like to do is I like to put my foot loops on before I attach them to the bridge, because I'm not constrained or not tied in yet. It's quite easy just to get the foot loops on. So we have one. These foot loops are from CGM. This is their current foot loop. The other one was their old thigh loop, and I bought that several years ago. So 2. Now what I'm going to do is, this is the part that you're going to discover. We are going to adjust this so that I'm basically above the ground. I'm just floating when I go to start. I'm about 15 to 18 inches. And now I can take my second bridge and clip right into the bottom tether. Then I'm going to take my top bridge and clip that into the tether. Then I'm ready to take my bottom foot loop, and I don't like this kind of carabiner, so I've actually changed it. Alright, so this is my starting position. My foot is about 15 inches above the ground. Again, this doesn't hold very well, it's very slick. I can step up into it, move my bottom tether, step onto that, and then climb. Let's just go around this. Yeah. Alright. So when I said 18 inches is because I usually leave about a 3-inch or so gap between the 2 tethers. And another benefit of having this kind of knot configuration is it does allow the tether to go pretty close to underneath it. And even if I'm standing on it, especially when I'm going down, it's not really ever cinching, not really ever catching that bottom tether. It does a good job of that. So again, remember, I'm standing right now. Both of my bridges are faced downward. What happens if I slip? I slip 15 inches from the standing point to the sitting point. Maybe that's not enough for you and you want to have no slack. I can't help you there. I'm willing to take this amount of slack risk because number one, I'm attached to both tethers, and number two, it's pretty much the same as popping yourself in a chair. It really rarely happens when I'm climbing. I'm trying to be very careful, and I gently sit down in the saddle. Should I reach a point where I get to my height and I want to move that up, that's more than easy to do. All right, let's get down. That is the details of the two-tether climbing system. Quick show and tell of something else. So this is my current hunting rig. I have here a single rope with the stiffened part on one side, and that's because if I want to rappel, I'm always attached to a rappel rope for a quick way down. My second one this is the ones I used in the video, my second tether. This doesn't have to be this diameter, I was just playing with this cord. I think this is 11 millimeter Predator rope, and it does the exact same thing as this right here. It's the same exact system, just a little bit larger. However, it is a great job. I highly recommend using a separate tether than like this, where I have both sides stiffened, and the reason for that is right here. So say I'm done climbing at the end of the day, and I'm still cinched into my second tether. What can I do with this? I want to be able to retrieve my rope after I rappel. I just have to do a quick, make sure I cover all my bases. Okay. What I'll do is, after I'm fully secured to my bottom tether, I'll go ahead and remove this. This is how we would do for removing branches. Gosh, there's so much to talk about. Okay, let's say for instance that this is a branch we want to go around. I would simply open, and give it a twist, kind of like a carabiner. Now that loosens this up, I pop that through. And there you go, there's a nice little bit of weight on it. I swing that up and over the branch, and back down, and retie. Now, when I want to do a rappel, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take this out of call it the other mode. Now this is much longer. What can I do? Well, I'm going to tie a maverick hitch. Now, you might yell at me for not having very long of a maverick hitch, but I've done this and it works for me. ARB recommends a much longer loop that he secures. This I only use during rappel. All the rest of the time, I'm on the other floor. And as you can see, it more than adequately holds. I will attach my retrieval line to the bottom of this loop, and when I'm at the bottom of the tree, when I go, I can two options. One, if I haven't passed any branches, because it's so slick and because it's so stiff, sometimes just pulling it a little bit, no branches, literally will let they will fall to the ground. Let's say I have passed the branch and this is a maverick hitch mode, it will literally explode. I'm still experimenting with some better sheaths to give me more fluid and smooth operation, and you don't really need a sheath at all, it doesn't make a difference. The reason I have a sheath is because when I do have it in its doubled state, it makes it a little bit easier to deal with the four of these ropes. So when I don't have a sheath, I am having to be a bit more careful about knowing which loop is which. So the sheath definitely helps that for my top tether. And that's why it's longer than the bottom tether. I think we covered that. Let me see if there's anything else. We covered, yeah, branch passing is literally undoing that. There's no metal in this system. The only metal I have is the 2 carabiners, and the chances of them clanging and hitting each other, it's still there, but I usually climb with my tethers slightly staggered, so my carabiners won't be touching. Other than that, I don't have any other metal, and so I can reduce the noise and clang. Let me think. You could get away with using a Ropeman 1 in the case of, or any, I guess, device, in the case of a friction hitch. I really don't like using Ropeman 1s, and I do just keep the one I had from 5 years ago as an emergency. Should I fall, it's easy to throw on, but it's totally doable with a mechanical sender. I don't know if you can get away from this portion. It really makes a difference. Part of what makes me choose this is that I wanted the stiffened part of the tether to extend past this in the form of an X. I really wanted to be able to grab this with one hand. Whereas, say if it was just Seek Bigger's Better Tether Hitch, it's great and all, but it has like a flexible gap in between the two, and it's really not one hand friendly. So this is what I got inspired to do as a relationship between those two. One hand up and down, with the second just as a guide. I think that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching, and look out for part 3. Climb safe. One quick thing to add. Part of this system, or the idea of using just a single about 50-foot rope with one side stiffened, is that I can also use it for SRT. Actually, I believe this is 60 feet. And in SRT, the only difference is that I carry the notch jet step foot ascender, as you saw in the video where I showed you how to silentize these. Other than that, I would just use a normal friction hitch that I can remove from the rest of my other tethers, as well as the foot loop. So I'm using the same system. You can check out my rope walking video. I basically am using a foot loop, a Longhorn Agile hitch, and the notch jet step foot ascender, which then transforms the rappel rope and 2-tether climbing system into an SRT climb. Very, very simple, and not a lot of additions. Thanks.